Hi YouTube, Ben from Sonic Safari here. In this ongoing tutorial series on creating drum sounds here in Logic, today we're going to be making a cowbell sound. Not a real cowbell, more like the 808 cowbell type synthetic sound. So let's get into it and have some fun. Okay, so here we are in Logic and I've got the ES2 synth loaded up here as an instrument, and I'm using this default preset. So you'll find that under tutorial settings, analogs, or inish. I pretty much always start from here. All right, so again, it's just a simple saw wave, and that's the filter's opened all the way up, so we're not really hearing anything else. Now, the first thing I want to do is try a different waveform here. So there's all the standard analog waveforms like saw and square and sine wave here, but if we set it to this sine wave, a lot of you may not know that there's a bunch of hidden digital oscillators. If you right click here where it says sine, look at all these other waveforms we've got here. And I'm going to choose one here that's just called wood. Will give us a kind of wooden sound. Let's try this out. Bit more interesting than a sine wave. Okay, now of course a lot of the sound is to do with the envelope, the shape of the sound over time. So I'm going to first of all set this to a monophonic instrument, and we'll set the oscillator to a hard restart, so it always starts in phase. And if we come down here to our envelope number 3 is the thing that's controlling the amplitude or volume. So what I want to do is shape the sound a bit. I want to leave the attack really fast, so it's really short, so it's instantaneously making a sound. But I'll bring the sustain down so that when I hold a note down, we don't hear the sound continually play. You can hear that dying off now. And I'll bring the decay down a little bit to make the sound a little bit shorter and snappier. Okay, somewhere around there is pretty good to begin with. And we can also play with the release. Might have a slightly longer release for this one. Okay, maybe we'll try and play with the pitch here. So I'm going to play this here on G2. Let's see if we can bring that up, maybe 5 or 6 semitones here. And as a main tone, that's okay, but maybe I want to add some more tones in here. I'm going to turn on oscillator number 2, and maybe I'll actually just move the mixer over here so we just hear oscillator number 2. And what I want to do here is actually use ring modulation. So ring modulation, if you've never heard of this term before, is where it's a mathematical sort of way of combining two oscillators, and it's a bit like amplitude modulation. And what it's doing is it's getting the sum and difference of two waveforms, and rather than just hearing them mixed together like you normally would, it's giving you the sum and difference. So it's giving you a more mathematical sound. What this often sort of results in is a more inharmonic sound. It's like less in tune and a little bit more kind of noisy and mathematical sounding. So that's what I'm after. And it's actually going to be using oscillator 1 to ring modulate oscillator number 2. So oscillator 1 will have an effect on oscillator number 2, even though I'm just hearing oscillator number 2. I'll play this back. Okay, so notice, for example, if I change the tuning of oscillator number 1, it is having a big impact on oscillator number 2. I'll leave that about 5. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Let's... Okay, maybe we can bring some other sounds into this as well. I'm going to switch on oscillator 3. And let's move the mixer over to just hear oscillator 3 for now. And again, I'm going to set this to the sine, but I'm going to choose one of these other waveforms here. Let's actually choose wood again. Okay, so it's the same waveform as oscillator number 1, But what I really want to do is have separate control over the envelope. I want this to be a much shorter sort of sound, more like just an attacky sort of sound. So what I could do here is come and I'm going to target, let's see, oscillator. I tried this before. Oscillator, I want oscillator 3's level, but actually, strangely enough, oscillator 3 level is not really having an effect. If I set this to oscillator 3 level and set this to envelope number 1, say, and increase the amount, notice it's not having much effect on, the envelope's not having much effect on the level. But I found actually setting this to the oscillator scale, I'll try this, oscillator L scale. Let's try this out. Now I can shape. It's actually affecting all the envelopes actually, but okay. Try blending these together and let's play with the pitch. Cool. Maybe we'll try filtering this. I'm going to switch over to this multi-mode filter. Let's try a bandpass filter. Maybe not. I'll switch over here to the other filter, which is a low-pass filter. I'll try the 24 dB fat mode. And let's see if we can affect, let's see, the cutoff 2 with, let's try envelope 2. We don't need the mod wheel involved. Could add a little bit of grit here in with the filter modulation, which is frequency modulation of the cutoff. Okay, I'll turn the volume down a bit. Let's see if we can add a bit of distortion here. Not too sure about that distortion. Yeah, I might switch this to a high pass and just take some of those lower frequencies out. There we go, we've got a more percussive sound there. I think what this really needs is a bit of reverb. So let's come in here under audio effects. I'm going to go ahead and let's add some reverb. I'll just choose the old Space Designer here. It's good for natural sounding spaces. Well, quite big. I'll try medium space, room. Let's try something like nice room. Possibly too big. Let's try percussion room. That's a bit better. Maybe I'll bring the wet down a bit. Maybe we'll bring that length of the reverb down a bit too. And of course, you can play this at different tones. So there we've got something a bit like a cowbell sort of a sound. Of course, we could tweak around with this all day long, but maybe I'll just leave it here for now. So that's how to create a sort of tuned cowbell or pitched kind of percussion sound here inside of Logic with the ES2.